ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Grace.
And you are with us on our ASEAN Daily. So today is the day where we are going to discuss the biggest issue that is happening this week.
That's right.
And of course, is the South China Sea. The recent news by The Hague was that the Philippines won the arbitration case versus China over the disputed waters.
That's right. So basically, China officially, they can't entirely claim the South China Sea is theirs anymore. But again, my just a little bit of small concern here is China. So you will never know how they will react in near future.
Yeah, that's true. But, the great news is, according to the international law, the United Nations Arbitral Tribunal, China's claim of the 9-dash line is invalid. And thus, the Philippines can keep their islands and seas.
That's right. And also, tribunal also said that China has violated Philippines' sovereign rights before. And having found that certain areas are within the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, the tribunal found that China had violated the nation, the Philippines, and also its exclusive economic zone by interfering with the Philippine fishing and the petroleum exploration.
And it further added that Chinese law enforcement vessels has unlawfully created a serious risk of collision when they physically obstructed Philippine vessels. And it happened a couple of times during 2014 and 2015.
Yep, but according to China, apparently they still insist that it has the historic rights in asserting its ownership of the region believed to be rich in natural gas resources and also a vital trade route for international cargo ships.
Well, we will have to discuss a bit more on China's position on this.
That's right.
But one thing is for sure is both countries, which is China and the Philippines, are not going to back down on their claims over the South China Sea. Welcome back. This is Arlene.
Hi, this is Grace.
You're still listening to us at our ASEAN Daily. Beijing's position on the South China Sea seems to be very, very bitter. In fact, just recently, Beijing released a statement that it rejected the tribunal's ruling in the South China Sea case.
That's right. They also said that it will not accept a ruling against it in a key international legal case over strategic reefs and then atolls that Beijing claims would give it control over disputed water of the South China Sea. So, coming from China again, they are still very persistent.
Very persistent.
Yeah.
But, I'm not surprised. If you look at history, a lot of the great powers in the past have never really respected the verdict by the Hague. I mean, case in point, even the US at one point in the past have rejected the decision or the verdict made by the Hague. The Hague, right? The Hague. Oh my God, my pronunciation. The Hague. So I think this is a trend. Is nothing to be surprised of.
That's right. And coming from Chinese media, especially one of the famous media, Xinhua, if I'm not mistaken, this is the country's official news agency. Apparently, they reacted very angrily to the verdict from yesterday's one. And they said they described it as an ill-founded ruling that was naturally null and void. And including the media, the whole nation is very bitter about the result.
So it seems like from just a geographical, territorial dispute over a bunch of rocks and seas and maybe sands, now it has become like a national identity. I mean, even previously we talked about patriotic cruised by Chinese tourists at the South China Sea, and we see a lot of the Filipinos, spewing very racist sentiment towards the Chinese. So we are seeing a trend now that it has become more than just a territorial dispute.
That's right. Well, it is really stated that tribunal concluded that there was no legal basis for China to claim historic rights to resources within the sea areas falling within the 9-dash line. But China, being China, I think they're very, at this point, they're very disappointed and also angry towards the result. And at the same time, or like we mentioned before, how China had violated the Philippine sovereign rights, and they are just keeping themselves pushing forward to the to come over the results. And near future, I'm sure there will be some other results coming up from perhaps from China.
Yeah, land reclamation has become one of the biggest activity by the Chinese in the South China Sea. But it's not just the Chinese. If you look at the Philippines and the Vietnamese, they have also been doing a lot of, I would say, activities in this area.
Yeah.
So I feel like everyone is trying to sort of put their pie there in the South China Sea.
Yeah. But then the power from Vietnam or the Philippines, they are still a bit, I will say, softer than the China's power. And also with the statement that China has made before, which is like they will never accept or participate in the arbitration initiated by the Philippines. So they are still very forcefully, very strong by themselves over this South China Sea, the jurisdiction.
But one thing is I want to highlight about the judgment. It does not allocate any of the outcrops or islands to rival countries, but instead indicates which maritime features are capable under international law of generating territorial rights over surrounding seas. So it means that, other countries that claim other parts of the South China Sea is still very much vague for their part of the pie, I would say.
That is very true.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Welcome back, this is Grace.
And of course, you are still with us on ASEAN Daily. We discussed a lot about the South China Sea, but the trend of maritime dispute is not just with the South China Sea. A lot of people might not realize in Timor-Leste, they are having a dispute with Australia for Australian behaving like China in their disputed waters.
Interesting. So it's another like South China Sea 2.0, but coming from Australia.
I know.
So we are looking at this the news from Foreign Policy, and one of the pictures it shows that from Timor-Leste, as they are saying, please, Australian government, respect our sovereignty and do not steal our oil. So it actually tells a lot what they are really struggling at this moment. So there is a major Asian power that refuses to compromise in its far-reaching territorial claims in oil-rich waters. Of course, despite appeals from its smaller neighbor to resolve the dispute in international court.
And it's not just China throwing its weight around this case. According to the tiny nation of Timor-Leste, well, actually it's not really that tiny, Australia has steadfastly rejected attempts to negotiate a permanent maritime boundary in the Timor Sea, home to plentiful of oil and gas field. This is the report written by Foreign Policy.
Well, it's not really easy to get the American lawmakers or helps from them to pay attention to this Timor-Leste maritime claims. But then the Prime Minister from Australia argues that the long-running disagreement with Australia carries the relevance for increasingly tense dispute in the South China Sea to the north, where the Washington, has repeatedly accused Beijing of coercive tactics against the neighbors.
They seem to be very vocal when it comes to China's action towards Southeast Asia, but not easy when it comes to getting American lawmakers and diplomats to pay attention to Timor-Leste's maritime claims. In fact, the Timor-Leste's Prime Minister Roy Maria de Araujo had flew to Washington to make his case to Congress. But seems like they are having trouble to influence their allies in Australia.
That's right. So now the situation is like Australia is like China and Timor-Leste is like the Philippines, I would say. Is it?
Yeah.
So apparently Australia, they are refusing to recognize the jurisdiction of an international court in The Hague that is supposed to resolve the dispute under UN convention. So it's like they're acting like China apparently.
Yeah, see, I told you.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk a lot about China not respecting international law,
Yeah.
but Australia is doing the exact same thing.
They have been maintaining the arrangement and the argument apparently.
But it's not like trying to justify that just because China is not doing it or Australia is not doing it. That means that is their right
That's
to not
right.
doing it. I mean, of course, it's wrong for not respecting international law. But at the same time, I feel like it's unfair to give judgment towards countries that are not pro-America or pro-Western countries.
That's right. But coming from Timor-Leste side, apparently they already have made a move. Because they are left without any choice. I mean, oil and gas revenues account for more than 95% of this country's income, Timor-Leste, and they need to clarify the legal status of the deposit in the Timor Sea to jumpstart the production.
That's true. And it's important that by resolving the maritime argument between Australia and Timor-Leste, based on obviously international law and good faith between neighbors, the Prime Minister of Timor-Leste suggested that it would strengthen the credibility of the United States and its Asian allies as they seek to counter Beijing tough tactics in the South China Sea, and of course resolving and at the same time, you know, if Australia can give a good example of respecting international law, I think it's natural for people to see that China should do the same thing, and China might want to do the same thing when it sees other big powers are doing the right thing.
Wow, that's what we hope for. Yeah, it would be nice to see that first step coming from Australia to set a good example.
That's true. I think the key word here is countries need to have moral authorities, although they are not human beings, but I think they should.
That's all from our ASEAN Daily today. Thank you for tuning into Drian ASEAN. For more updates on Southeast Asia, please go to our website at drianasean.com. If you're on the go, you can always download our TuneIn app on your mobile. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels at Drian ASEAN and Drian ASEAN TV. Don't forget to follow us on our Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram.